Hey guys, Toyhouze here, and today I want to provide the proper sequel to my AOE Protection Paladin guide. Now that guide did answer many questions, but there are still some questions left unanswered. So this guide will answer those questions such as, what's the best build for a level 70 AOE Protection Paladin? Which consumables are the best? What are the best professions you could choose? Should I go Scryer or Aldor? And Phase 1 best in-slot gear, as well as best farming spots. Now, if you learned something today, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with all that said, let's begin. All right, so let's start with the best talent build for AOE Protection Paladins in the Burning Crusade. Now, as you all know, you want to start with 5 out of 5 redoubt, and then you want to get your toughness in order to increase your armor value, getting precision, as well as shield specialization. That's going to increase the amount of damage absorbed by your shield by 30%, and then the nice 6% all damage reduction from improved Righteous Fury. You're also going to want 1 point in anticipation. This should all look familiar if you've seen my previous guide. Now, of course, we absolutely want and need Blessing of Sanctuary for that holy damage, as well as reduced damage when taking damage. Now, Reckoning is incredibly powerful. As you all know, this is going to give you extra procs on your seals, and of course, you want a nice weapon speed weapon for that. If you have a low number of mobs, if there's a ton of mobs hitting you, then that's not as important. For the next talent, you're going to want 5 out of 5 one-handed weapon specialization. This will increase all damage you deal, not just weapon damage, all damage you deal when a one-handed weapon, one-handed melee weapon is equipped by 5%. Now at this point, you're going to want to get Holy Shield, as well as 2 points into Improved Holy Shield. Now, at this point, I think there is room for deviation, but I want to tell you exactly what I would do personally. Now, if you are going to be leveling, or if you're going to be an AOE Protection Paladin who is going to be primarily doing boosts or low-level mob AOEing, I don't think you need much more anticipation, because your defense skills are already going to be so high that your damage mitigation, your dodge, your blocks, your parries are already going to be extremely high. So I don't think anticipation is the right talent choice. I actually think if you want to improve damage mitigation for a large number of low-level mobs, your talent choice would be Ardent Defender, because I believe you're going to get a large number of mobs on you, which will eventually bring your health below 35% health. Quite frequently, probably every pull that you do, you'll probably end up with very low health, assuming you're pulling a huge number of mobs, aka an entire instance. Now, that is what I would do for the protection tree. Moving over to Retribution, I would get 5 out of 5 Benediction. It's going to help, but also it's going to unlock the next tier of talents. I'm going to get 2 points in Improved Judgment, 3 points into Deflection in order to unlock the next tier. Now, at this point, I actually think Pursuit of Justice is excellent. Now, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the damage mitigation from getting hit by spells is definitely nice, but movement speed is excellent for gathering up mobs more quickly. Now, at this point, there's a couple different options. Vindication is going to reduce target's attributes. I don't think that it's very powerful against low-level mobs, because their attributes are already incredibly low. Seal of Command will not be used at all, so there's no point. So I think the best choice here is Conviction. So put 2 points into Conviction to unlock the next tier of talents. Now at this point, you could go Improved Retribution Aura, but I actually think the superior build, the best build you could possibly go for AOE Protection Paladin, is to not get Improved Retribution Aura. Believe it or not, I actually ran some tests, and I think you'll be surprised to learn that Retribution Aura is actually not the best aura for AOE Protection Paladins. That's right. So 2 more points into Deflection. In order to unlock the next tier, we're going to get Sanctity Aura, which will increase holy damage done by you and party members by 10%, and then Improved Sanctity Aura, 2 more points to increase all damage caused by targets affected by Sanctity Aura by 2%, which is essentially almost like getting 2 more points into one-handed weapon specialization. This is all damage. Now, guys, I ran some DPS tests for AOE Protection Paladins, and typically I have found that you will do approximately 28.99% repeating more DPS with the Sanctity Aura build that I'm showing right here. So in my opinion, this is the absolute best talent tree build for AOE Protection Paladins for low-level boosting or low-level mob grinding. probably even all of classic vanilla content. Now, you could take points out of Ardent Defender and put them into Anticipation if you are not if your defense skill is lower than you'd like, but I think that will be more applicable when you want to AoE higher level mobs like level 70s. So there it is. This is the level 70 AoE Protection Paladin build that I endorse and highly recommend. All right, let's talk consumables. Now, when it comes to flasks and elixirs, the number one best flask that you can go for is the Flask of Blinding Light. This will increase spell damage caused by arcane, holy, and nature spells by up to 80 for 2 hours. It will count as both a battle and guardian elixir, and the effect will persist through death. Now, you might be wondering, does this stack with Petrified Lichen Guard damage, because that is nature? No, it does not. Just spells. So that means that if you are also using Storm Chops, for example, which is also nature damage, it will not receive any sort of damage. It will only work on spells. So, for example, Holy Shield, which is a spell, and Consecration, and so on. You get the idea. Only spells. Which is still extremely nice because Consecration will be your number one damage dealing ability. Alternatively, if you can't afford the Flask of Blinding Light, you could go for Adept's Elixir, which will give you 28 spell damage and healing for as well as spell critical strike rating by 24 for 1 hour, and it is just a battle elixir. And you could also go for the Elixir of Major Fortitude, which is not nearly as good as the alternatives, to increase your maximum health by 250, as well as restore 10 health every 5 seconds for 1 hour. Now, when it comes to food, I actually already mentioned it when I was talking about Flask of Blinding Light. You can absolutely go for Storm Chops, which is very nice. It will periodically deal nature damage to targets around you. It's fantastic. You can get it, the recipe, from doing cooking dailies. Highly recommend you pick that up, because what's nice about it is it actually stacks with the well-fed buff that you would get from things like Fisherman's Feast or Spicy Crawdad. However, the number one best well-fed bonus for AoE Protection Paladins, in my opinion, is a three-way tie between Blackened Basilisk, which will give you 23 spell damage and 20 spirit, as well as Crunchy Serpent and Poached Bluefish, which also do the same exact thing. So it's up to you, whichever one you want. Whichever is cheapest is what I would recommend. So Poached Bluefish, Crunchy Serpent, or Blackened Basilisk are the three foods to give you the nice well-fed buff for 23 spell damage and 20 spirit, as well as Storm Chops for that nature damage shock. Now, when it comes to potions, you cannot go wrong with super mana potions. I would recommend those probably as the only option. Typically, I find that you'll be running into mana issues more than anything. However, alternatively, if you want to be fancy, you could also go for Iron Shield Potion, which will increase your armor by 2,500 for 2 minutes. However, for the amount of time and the gold cost, I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's really that incredible. Now, it comes to weapon buffs, you absolutely cannot go wrong with the Superior Wizard Oil. This will increase your spell damage by up to 42 and will last for 1 hour. Spell damage is the way to go, considering Consecration is once again your number one damage dealing ability. Alternatively, you could get Brilliant Wizard Oil, which will increase your spell damage by up to 36, as well as increase spell critical strike rating by 14, and that will last 1 hour. Now, there's also other things that you could get. You could get Nightmare Seed, which will increase your health by 2,000. You could obviously get scrolls such as Scroll of Protection V, Scroll of Agility V, Scroll of Strength V, as well as Dark Runes and Demonic Runes if you're really struggling with mana. You could also get Greater Ward of Shielding. That's actually quite nice. Typically, you'll find, I'd say if you're in decent gear, you might have somewhere around 10,000 to 15,000 health. So a 4,000 health point shield, absorption shield, is actually quite nice. Of course, you could also get Dragon Breath Chili. That is definitely another food that just came to my mind. But I would say those are the best consumables for the AoE Protection Paladin. All right, let's talk about the best race for AoE Protection Paladin. So number one, I would say, is Dwarf with Stone Form. This is going to give immunity to bleed, poison, and disease effects. However, the biggest bonus is that armor will be increased by 10%. Although it only lasts 8 seconds, it's still, in my opinion, the best racial for AoE Protection Paladins. Alternatively, it is nice to have, the heroic presence from being Draenei, the increased 1% hit chance. That's marginally useful, just making sure you get as many seal procs procs as possible. Gift of the Naru could be casted pre-pull, but honestly I think the benefits are really marginal and not that big. Humans do have sword specialization as well as mace specialization to increase your expertise, which I think is again somewhat helpful, but nowhere near as powerful as dwarf. And then blood elves for horde, really you don't have any other choice, but it is nice to have mana tap as a form to pull from ranged, since most of the builds I've shown you do not include Avenger's Shield. And then you also have Arcane Torrent if you want to pull casters closer to you, or you can't pull them for whatever reason. So blood elf has its perks as well, but I would say dwarf is the #1 pick. All right, let's talk best professions for the AOE Protection Paladin. So I would say my absolute #1 choice for AOE Protection Paladins when it comes to professions is enchanting. You have a 24 spell power bonus. By enchanting your ring with spell power on both rings, the enchant increases damage and healing done by spells by 12. Put it on both rings, you'll get 24 spell power. In addition to that, enchanting is incredibly useful for AoE Protection Paladins. I would dare say a must, because usually you should do certain farms like Scolomancer, Strathholm, and disenchanting the epics and the blues that you get from these dungeons will be incredible in order to make tons of money. A lot of the enchanting materials are still used to make things like different wizard oils, like I mentioned before, that are still in use, and you could use them yourself or sell them. And I think that enchanting is the #1 absolutely best profession for AoE Protection Paladins who plan to do some farming. Now, when it comes into second place, I actually think the best is jewel crafting. I think it's going to last you the longest and will be the most relevant for the entirety of the Burning Crusade. There are 3 unique gems that will give you some very nice bonuses. One of them is called Falling Star, which will give you plus 18 stamina. Another one is called Facet of Eternity, which will give you 12 defense. And there's also Dawn's Heart, which will grant 14 spell damage. All of that together, and by the way, gems, it's the best in slot gems, right? It'll always be relevant for you. So I think if you're really min-maxing, you will go enchanting and jewel crafting on your AoE Protection Paladin. Now let's say you don't have access to some of these gems or enchants, or maybe you want to know what are some alternative choices. You could go with engineering for the Goblin Rocket Launcher or the Gnomish Poultryizer, which will give you a nice plus 45 stamina, which is quite a bit of health. And that will be a nice benefit as well. Alternatively, you could also get leatherworking to get Drums of Battle or Drums of War to provide haste or attack power respectively. But overall, I would highly recommend, and you can't go wrong with going enchanting and jewel crafting for your AoE Protection Paladin. All right, let's talk about Scryer or Aldor for the AoE Protection Paladin. So, in my opinion, I would actually recommend Scryer, and that is because Scryers get a ring called Seer's Trinket, or Seer's Signet. This is going to provide you with damage and healing increase by 34, as well as spell critical strike rating by 12 and 24 stamina. Yes, you do have to be exalted with the Scryers in order to get it, but I think it is a nice spell power ring. But if I'm being totally frank with you, I think that the differences between the two reputations are incredibly minimal. If you think about it, most paladins, at least all paladins on the Horde, are going to already be friendly with Scryer, or at least not unfriendly with the Aldor, so it's going to be somewhat easier as well. So if you're Horde, I already recommend you just go Scryer if you're a Horde Paladin. But really the difference between Greater Inscription of Warding and Greater Inscription of the Night is really the difference is 15 dodge rating and 10 defense rating versus that flipped 15 defense rating and 10 dodge rating. Many people argue that it's just easier to get defense rating than dodge rating, so they say you should go Aldor, but honestly I don't think that the difference is major. And anyways, if you're going for this sort of vanilla classic WoW AoE farming, I don't think defense rating is even that important. So in my opinion, I don't think it really matters if you go Aldor or Scryer, but if you had to choose one, I would recommend go Scryer. And that is my recommendation for your AoE Protection Paladin. All right, and finally, let's talk about the Phase 1 best in slot gear for the AOE Protection Paladin. Now, guys, there's really only a few pieces that I think are super important for this build. Number 1, the Petrified Lichen Guard. This is sold by Micah, the Sporagar Quartermaster in Zangar Marsh. It'll require you to have Honored Reputation in order to purchase it. I think this is a must, and you should absolutely get Petrified Lichen Guard. Now, I also did make a video comparing Petrified Lichen Guard against Flame Shield, and in my opinion, Petrified Lichen Guard is the way to go, but you can watch the video and decide for yourself. Next up, Figurine of the Colossus. This is acquired from Kargath Bladefist and Shattered Halls. It's absolutely fantastic. You'll use this trinket and go immediately from whatever health you're at all the way to full in a matter of seconds. Can't recommend it enough. I think it is the absolute best in slot trinket for AOE Protection Paladins. Now, when it comes to your Librams, you must get the Libram of Eternal Rest. This is going to increase the damage done by your Consecration spell, which is your number 1 damage dealing spell. I can't recommend it enough. This is going to drop off of Darkweaver Sith in Sethic Halls. Now, the last piece of gear that I highly recommend is Dabiri's Enigma. It's a solid choice because it's going to increase the number of blocks you get, which means more damage, and pair it with Figurine of the Colossus, and you'll literally be max health in nearly a split second. So, with those out of the way, I think that the rest of the gear, you should probably just reference a best in slot list for Protection Paladins, and I'll provide you with that in the description below the video. Alright guys, we're on to the last part, the places to farm at level 70. Now this one's pretty straightforward, but you know what? I'm going to give it to you anyways. I really think that Stratholme and Scholomance are fantastic, especially if you get enchanting, to get those vanilla enchanting materials that are still readily going to be needed, as well as those dark runes that I mentioned that you would need as well. Scarlet Monastery is an excellent boosting place to farm. Typically you can get anywhere from 15 to 18 gold running boosts for low level characters looking to get a bunch of levels. And then of course outside Black Temple you can farm the Demon Hunter Supplicants, and they will drop Sun Fury Signets, which by the way I think this is highly time sensitive as people are looking to get Scryer and Aldor reputation. I highly recommend that you go and try to get Sun Fury Signets, both Scryer and Aldor reputation tokens, because I think that their price will go down dramatically over time as more and more players reach their reputation goals with Aldor and Scryer. And of course, if you are Alliance, I highly recommend doing Stockade runs. I think that's going to be a great source of money. This will typically be about 3 gold, and the same can be said for Horde with Rage Fire Chasm. Well guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something today. If you did, then don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more World of Warcraft content. My name is Toyhouze, and I will see you in the next video.